So, hello and welcome to Radar Radio. Here this week with Timothy James. Hi, Tim.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, and also my other two fellow hosts, Joe
Hello.
and Catherine.
Hello.
So this week, obviously, as we're in our seventh podcast now, we're branching out a little bit and speaking to people who have expertise in a few disciplines. So Tim obviously is probably most famous for Hacktivist, but he's also a renowned producer locally and pushing nationally as well. So yeah, Tim, how are you doing?
I'm actually boiling. I'm in the studio at the moment, and I've got my air conditioning off because obviously we're doing this podcast, and it's really loud. So I'm really sweating because everything's on in the studio. Apart from that, I'm good.
How are you finding lockdown?
It was. I think the first week was like weird because it was like I don't know what to do with myself, and then as it kind of went on, sort of 2, 3, 4 week, it was like okay, this is nice. I'm relaxed. And then anything since then, it's just been like, what am I going to do to survive? Starting to think of like just going out and like grabbing some pigeons and stuff and maybe starting to cook that instead of spending all of my money. But it obviously, I guess every musician you're going to ask is going to say the same thing. And that is, what the hell are we going to do when this is over, let alone what we're going to do now? So it's obviously worrying, but I'm just trying to, involve myself in musical stuff and just look forward really and try and keep my mind busy that way.
So have you been writing a lot?
Yeah, been doing a lot of sort of finalising on a lot of stuff that I've had around, especially on my new band's material, getting that stuff down. Obviously, we've not been able to get together, but we can all we'll be meeting up on Zoom and talking about stuff, and I've been sending clips over, and vocalists have been putting stuff down on just on the phone and sending that back over. So there is ways to function, certainly, but it's just it was hard. I find it hard to write and be productive if I'm not comfortable in my life. That sounds a little bit diva, but when you're worried about rent and electricity and all this kind of thing and what you're going to do, it is hard to get into the zone. Maybe some people feed off of negativity, but for me, I need to be kind of not worrying about too many things.
No, a few people have said that who we've had on the podcast that have found it really difficult. You've got more time than you've ever had in your life, but in a sense, it's made it difficult to be creative.
Yeah, time to think can be dangerous, I think. And social media is extremely dangerous at the moment because it's just become evident that no one knows who to trust or who to believe or who to listen to or what to do or what not to do. And it's quite hard to stay off of that. We're all been encouraged to, get the updates from Boris and stuff like that, and to be tuning in, and then the next minute everyone's clapping outside, and it's still quite hard to get used to that. That's when I know what day it is. It's the only time of the week I know what day it is because everyone starts clapping outside my door. So I'm like, right, it's Thursday. Okay, cool. So tomorrow's Friday. It's just it's difficult because it's a new way of like living, I suppose, and you've got to think of everything you touch and think about everywhere you go and think about everywhere you breathe, and it's and try not to go to shop. I mean, I go to the shop every day. I don't know about you guys, but I can't do a weekly shop because I don't know what I want to eat tomorrow or this afternoon. So I go every day, and that's what I'm used to doing. But at the moment, that's really hard for me to go once a week or a month.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the writing side of things. Actually, you said you have to be somewhat comfortable, obviously mentally, in order to be most productive. Or not as comfortable as such, but I guess in a good place. I find that kind of ironic given the heaviness and I guess the darkness of a lot of the music that you've put out over the years. One would assume that does come from a darker place, I guess.
I think a different way of looking at it for me would be more along the lines of having a hold of said negativity. if you know what I mean. So you've got like the negativity of, say, for instance, there was like, you've had a falling out with someone, and that is kind of, it has a negative effect on you. And for me, if something bad happens, I have to be able to like pigeonhole it and kind of know how I feel about it before I can use that as some sort of material base, if you know what I mean. So it's like, if something just bad happened just now, you hear a lot of musicians are like, oh, the first thing I do is go to the studio and it comes flooding out with me. But it isn't for me. I have to come to terms with things, and I have to be kind of not okay with it, but just fully aware of everything that's going on. So I'm like, okay, that is really bad, and okay, I'm going to write a really bad song about that now. But for me, it doesn't happen straight away. But actually, I write a lot of horrible music when I'm happy. Because for me, the dark stuff isn't, and the stuff that gets you going isn't necessarily, okay, it might sound negative, but it's not necessarily like actually negative vibes. It's just a dark sound that gets your blood pumping. I listen to horrendous stuff in the gym, and that's not because I'm angry. It's because it's just the energy in it, I think. And sometimes when things are happy, you don't get quite the same energy. So a lot of the stuff, going back to the Hacktivist stuff, was all a lot political and very low tuned. And when it first came out, talking about Cold Shoulders and the self-titled Hacktivist EP and that kind of stuff, it was all pretty angry. But I was really happy then. So I just think it's the energy more, and I think dark energy for me speaks more than, I think a lot of happy stuff to me is cheesy, and I don't enjoy it. Especially writing it, I don't necessarily enjoy the pentatonic scale whilst I'm writing, for example. Even though I like listening to it, but writing it, I like the dark stuff. But then there's, you got shade, and then you've got the lightness, and it's nice to break into something lighter. But it's quite easy to think of like your favourite bands and think when a real horrible song comes on, it's like, wow, they must be really going through a tough time. But I don't think that's always the case.
Looking at your post the other day on your Facebook about being dyslexic and suffering from dyscalculia and dyspraxia, I'm dyslexic and have quite bad dyscalculia as well.
I know. I can't say it either. The funny thing is, having dyslexia means you can't say dyscalculia. It's just hilarious.
It's so weird. I can't hold I try and explain it to people. I can't hold on to numbers in my head when I'm doing maths. It's like they like evaporate into smoke. But as you said, obviously those were things that you had to battle with, and music was a real release. How did you find your way into music?
It isn't a wicked story, if I'm honest. When I experimented with quite a lot of things when I was young, but this happened to me when I was really young. My dad was always in a band, and he played bass and sang in like a covers band. But when I was born, sort of late 80s, early 90s, that was kind of a real big thing then. And it was kind of all there. There was obviously a lot of original bands, but I think a lot of people back then weren't able to actually write original music and get noticed for it as easy as you can now without the internet and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people, when they got together and jammed, they just did original stuff and they played weddings and parties and that kind of thing. That's the kind of vibe I got, unless you were really lucky and you got on top on the pops. But that was it. For the UK anyway. But I remember once my dad brought home, I got some cereal. This sounds totally random, but it does work. And on this cereal packet, back in the day, I'm 32. I don't really know all of your ages, but
older.
I'm feeling it now. Okay. Well, I won't say any more on that. But I remember, I can't have been much more than like 10 or maybe 11 or something, but my dad brought home some cereal for me. And on the packet was a disc for, I don't know if anyone's heard of EJ before.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Wow, that's good.
And it was, and it was a demo version of Dance EJ. And I had no idea what it was. And back then on your PC, when you had, Windows 97 or Windows 98 or whatever it was, it was like you didn't really have many games. You kind of just turning the computer on was pretty exciting, let alone like having like Grand Theft Auto or something like that. And I plugged this thing in, and it took me a while to get to grips with it. But for anyone listening that doesn't know, it's like pre-recorded loops, I suppose, that are all in the same key and they're all in the same speed, and you can't really go wrong with it. You can build the songs how you want, but you can't go wrong. It's kind of set to be sounding good, whatever. And it just grabbed me, and I loved it. And I'd never been so captivated by anything before, because having the learning difficulties that I had in school and stuff, I found it very hard to get into many things then, because there wasn't many things to get into at that time for someone like me. So yeah, I loved it. So then I started, I made my dad get me the actual full versions of them, and they do many different, don't know if they're still going actually, but they did many different genres, and I had to have every single one. And then I had like a mini disc recorder, so I'd record them. I didn't know how to bounce then. It took me ages to figure that out. So I would actually live record the tracks I did onto mini disc, and my dad thought I was some sort of like producer hero. And that's where it started, really. And I just that's what got me. I think I started with Cakewalk after that, really old version of that. It was like a rock version of Cakewalk or something like that. And then I was hooked, and then I knew what I wanted to do at college and school, obviously doing music and stuff like that. And that's kind of what started. So it's not a real rock and roll story, but if my dad hadn't have done that, I don't know whether I would have found that. Maybe it was always in me, but you never know. But I like to think that was the real start for me.
So from there, how did you come about into your first band and into your actual music career?
My first band, I lived in Bristol, and I went to Access to Music College in ATM. I know it's got different names around the country, but that's the one I went to in Bristol. And they kind of put you with musicians and stuff. I hadn't really done much band-wise before, only like little bands playing in garages until your neighbours come and tell you to stop. Well, don't tell you, make you. But just kind of like being in that college environment with like-minded musicians, and it's a good mix of like, there were like rappers there and singers, like female singers and male singers and bass players and DJs, and they kind of just, it's your kind of first real contact with people that are like-minded and also want to pursue it as a career, and they're kind of taking the first steps into doing it, like that. And saying, right, hang on, this is what I want to do, so I'm going to learn it. And I found that they were teaching mainly on Logic, which is what I've used ever since. And I kind of found like maybe I kind of knew a lot already from my childhood, because I really latch onto things, which is something else you find when you do have less talent in some areas, like maths, English, or general life. You kind of do boost into others. Which I kind of pick any instrument up by ear or that kind of thing. So yeah, it was college, and we did a few showcases with that, and did my first shows around Bristol, which was wicked. That was really, really good, and that was like my first kind of like taste of live shows. And once you start, it's just literally, I think it's more-ish than crack, and I haven't done crack. I promise you I haven't done crack, but I kind of feel like it's just, if it's meant for you, you cannot stop thinking, and nothing knocks you back. You can have some really terrible shows, or you can have some really terrible criticism and stuff like that, but it only just, nothing gets in the way of that, and you cannot scratch that itch anywhere else. It's just not possible. And then I was going to go to university, but I kind of decided, I was like, you know what, like everyone's going to go in and spend so much money on trying to do this course. And I want to spend that money on getting the gear that they would have and just doing it myself, because I kind of felt like I was always slightly ahead, not sounding big-headed, but I always felt I was slightly ahead than what they were teaching, and I kind of felt I didn't want to waste any more time like that, even though I did learn things. So I just went out and did it myself and started recording and started writing, and most of the people I know now that went to uni don't do music, and they didn't make it. And I don't know whether that's because of university or what, I don't know, or whether it's just because it's hard, or they didn't want to pursue it in the end. But
yeah, I'd agree with that, actually. A large majority of people I know that have got music qualifications aren't doing much in the industry with them, and it's kind of saddening to see that.
Especially with the amount of money they probably paid to do that course, and they're well kitted out. Like the Bristol uni that had all the studios, and it was, I went there to look at it, and it's really good. I was like, wow, this is what I want to do, but I don't want to pay someone else to show me, or I don't want to pay to use someone else's gear, when for the same amount of money by the end of your course, like 2 or 3 years, you could do it yourself straight away, and just I'm hands-on, and I'm not very good at learning, like being told and being shown. I only figure it out by seeing what it does and pushing it to the limit and going, okay, that sounds bad, and then easing it back in and just finding the limits of what I'm using. I tend to find that's the best way I learn, so I took that decision. And then I moved to Milton Keynes, which is where I met pretty much most of a lot of the gods out there now, killing it. Obviously, you had Brown on last week, which I was listening to earlier on, and when he was in Foul Silent, that was the kind of time that we all met each other. And obviously, Noddy's in Heart of a Coward now, who was in Foul Silent, and Ackles in Tesseract, but we're all from the same area, so. It was destined for big things when all these minds are just playing at the same venue. I don't know if you mentioned the Pit Club in your guys in the interview you did with him, but that was kind of the foundation for all of us, really, and that's what started for a lot of bands that you could name, even some of the bands playing Radar. We all know each other from Milton Keynes. It's like the hub of don't make me say the word beginning with a D and ending with a T. I'm just not going to say it, and it's just because I just don't think that word should exist anymore. I think we need, it's become. I'm starting a new conversation. Anyway, yeah. So and that was it. Coming here and rubbing shoulders with those guys and drinking with those guys and just getting involved and playing together. It was amazing, and that was kind of the start of it, and that's where Heart of a Coward came from. Which I was the founding member of, and then that's where Hacktivist came from, and now Purge.
Yeah, on the gent word, I think we just all called it progressive music.
Oh, you said it.
I think we got to say it's progressive music.
We have to. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's never been a name people particularly liked. I remember Brown years ago. This is like 2013, recoiling in horror at the word. Progressive music. Let's do that.
That's how it should be, but I think when you get a special word, obviously progressive music isn't a special word, but when you make a word for something, it just becomes so like gospel, and then you get like the cults growing from it, and then they are just like it. Touching on that quickly, you might bring me back on that actually, but I just feel like it's just so nasal now. The whole thing is so like you've got to be amazing, otherwise you're just not rated, and it scares me with the way the production's going. I mean, people out there right now are killing it with their plugins and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing, but it's just like it scares me how easy it is for people to create a hit record in their bedroom, and that's not because I own a studio, but that's because it's. The music, especially for the UK, the scene is going to take a huge hit, which was Brexit. That was going to be bad enough. But now, obviously, COVID and Brexit, I really don't know how we're going to make it back. And how, when we do make it back, we've not just got a huge mess of like millions of bedroom bands that just not polluting the airways. But you know what I mean? I'm not trying to come across as like, I'm not trying to poo-poo anything, but it's going to be hard for people, and I think if you spend a lot of time in your bedroom using the plugins and the presets, it's very hard when you actually make it out into the real music world, and you actually have to make it live, get shows. You've got no knowledge of that, and you've not played backstreet gigs, and you've not done all this stuff, and you've just been in the bedroom. So I mean, how can you cut it? How can you be the next biggest band if you've just sat on your office chair from IKEA?
Yeah, and I guess what you're also saying, and it's sort of going to the other side of the industry, is if there's a collapse, if we lose loads of the indie venues, which is a possibility, they all stay shut for the rest of the year. We're going to lose a lot of them. Where will people get? Or to
forever?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you need that bottom step. You need to start somewhere. And I was lucky from, when I was a lot younger and playing these shows, the venues were everywhere. And I don't know what it was like from where you guys are from or where you were from at that age. But, in the kind of like early to mid 2000s, everyone went to gigs, no matter who was playing. They were all going, there's a gig, let's go, it's live music, it's wicked, let's go, let's drink apple cider or whatever, White Lightning in the field next to it, and then let's go in and bounce around. That doesn't happen now. I still think that we don't have that bottom generation that are like just wanting to get out of I don't know, the house to see this live music because there's things like Fortnite. Does anyone know what Fortnite is? I bet all you guys play Fortnite, don't you?
I know what it is. I don't play it.
Right. Okay. Sorry for assuming that. It's just that everyone seems to, and that was no my luck. It's just things like that. I don't know. It's just it's so hard to talk about this without sounding like a hypocrite. Do you know what I mean? Because I do lots of stuff online and I mess around with songs and do stuff like that. So I could be sounding hypocrite by saying, I'm sitting here doing that and just kind of using an online platform until I can next get shows.
No,
and why can't we do these kinds of things in our bedroom?
I think it is a something that's happening in the industry. I mean, for smaller music venues, you can make more money with cover bands than original bands, and that's quite a sad place to be in 2020 when, as we were growing up, as you said earlier, like you're 32, I'm 35, Ash, I think, 31, and Catherine is a little bit older than me. And,
like, a year.
A year older, sorry.
She is there.
I went to Reading Festival from 2000 to 2009, saw all these amazing bands, and I know Reading Festival is a bit crap now, but, back in the day, it was like the rock festival. We got to see like Rage Against the Machine and Slipknot and Blink and, everything, and it was just great. But, yeah, now it's quite a weird situation. You have to be sort of the hype internet band to get people to come down to the show, and then you have to back it up or you don't, I guess.
Well, am I bad person in saying that it's quite hard for the internet hype band to be able to back it up live?
I've certainly seen it, yeah.
Especially now. I have too. And, I think maybe, they always say that, like, the industry and, fashion and everything always goes round in a big circle. And live music will come back, and maybe we're heading back into the DJ, drum and bass, rap kind of era. But I just don't know why everything can't survive together, and that was the basis that Hacktivist was built on. And I know the guys would agree with me that it was just like, we weren't trying to be weird or trying to be edgy or gimmicky. It just sounded great. And it was like, you mentioned Reading, and we did Reading main stage maybe 4 years ago now, I think. And that actually, what you were saying was becoming, not as good now, actually worked for us in our favour, because there was a lot of, and we got this a lot with shows, there's a lot of rap fans that were like, what the hell is this heavy stuff? And there was a lot of metal fans that were like, what the hell is this rappy stuff? And it's like, and then the electronic element as well, people were coming together, and it was actually bringing people together from different genres and stuff. And it was time and time again, we were getting messages and stuff like that saying, I've never listened to anything like this, but now, we were like a gateway drug. And like, say, Meshuggah were like, oh, I keep talking about drugs. I'm not a drug addict, I promise. But do you know what I mean? It's like that actually. So why can't live music and bands and the electronic music live together? Why do they always have to come in swings? And I guess that's just how it is. Just things come and go, ebb and flow, and all that sort of stuff. But it's just a shame that it has to be like this, and that festivals are getting cancelled, have been cancelled left, right, and centre. And I don't know whether a lot of festivals will be able to come back from that, and a lot of venues will be able to come back from that. The Crawford Arms in Milton Keynes is quite close to my heart. I've been working there on and off for like 11 years, and I know the guys really well. And they made an incredible venue there, and got, every year they were getting Independent Venue of the Year award and all that sort of stuff. And they are independent. And, they're facing hard times, and they're getting good backing from people, but the problem is that the people you don't necessarily have the money to back the venues. And then when you look at, places like Europe, my mum lives in Switzerland, and their music scene is completely funded by the government, because the government can see the good in that, keeping the kids off the street and having, something artistic to do and all that kind of thing. We need that in the UK, and I don't understand how hard that could be, but it's like our government just don't have ears, or they don't like music, or I don't know. It's just like they want to destroy it all for some reason, or watch it burn. Or am I wearing my tin foil too tight on my head?
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely a noticeable difference between the UK and the rest of Europe? I mean, obviously, the grass always looks greener on the other side, but as you've played in Europe as well, and you treat
I just mean heavily touring Europe.
Yeah,
it's completely different. It's like it is. I hated playing the UK. I like playing the UK because I like seeing friends, and obviously you've got friends all around the country and they can come and stuff. They can't do that in Europe, and it's always strange faces. But it's just it is literally like night and day. You turn up and the fridge is full of everything that you asked for and more, and twice of everything you asked for once, and towels. In the UK, it's almost impossible to even expect towels when you're a headline artist. Depending on where you play, obviously. At Radar, I definitely got towels last year, and that was amazing. So you guys are doing that right. But it's such a small thing, a towel, but it just shows that there's some care there. It's like you might get hot and you might want to wipe your face, so here's a towel. But I've played so many shows where it's not even been like, they've not even adhered to. There's no point asking what you want on your rider if you're not going to get it. If you're not going to fulfill it, don't bother asking me. Don't get me what I do, just don't give, just don't bother, because again, I sound like a diva, but when you're on tour, it's difficult. It's hard, and it's long days, long nights, a lot of traveling, and in the UK, all you really have to offer on the road is literally Burger King, KFC, or like those M&S ones that you get which you can't afford. So it's nice to get there and just get some food. It shows that you're appreciated by the venue and the journey you've come. It shows that you've taken the time and they're appreciative of you being there. Yeah. So when you get there and it's basically nothing there for you, you know that that's going to be a sign of what's to come for the evening. And it's always the same.
Ash, Catherine and I have all toured extensively, and one of our big sort of founding promises of Radar was that we wanted to value artists. So, to make sure that we weren't undercutting them on fees and to make them feel welcome, and maybe we wouldn't be able to do the whole rider, which you probably get on a headline show. We'd do, bits from it and then give you, make sure you get a hot meal, get a crate of beer, have a good time.
Yeah. I think hot meals as well is another good sign. I mean, everybody likes buyout, but you tend to do something stupid with it. But that's another thing when you... time and time again, you turn up at the European venues and they've already got like a huge pot of like some like real nice pasta, and they've got a grill out. In Germany, they love grilling, so they're grilling stuff, and there's like a barbecue, and these are at festivals as well, and all this kind of, and it's just like insane, and it's actually like it feels like a holiday. And then it's not that you're being spoiled; it's just that you're being taken care of, and it is an arduous thing to do, to tour, especially Europe. I mean, even we went, we played as far out as Romania and things like that. And even there, you would expect to be like, I don't know, beaten or something. I'm not sure, but it's just like your royalty. And Russia is I don't know if you guys have had the chance to play there yet, but Russia is the place. They've got the sickest scene there. And they're like everyone, all the kids come out to every show and they're excited to see you. And they already, if they don't know you now, they didn't know you before, they go out and they listen to all your music and they buy all your stuff ready for your show, no matter who you are. It's incredible.
I was there with Heart of a Coward in January, and I'm sort of stood at the side of the stage, sort of enjoying the gig, proud of the guys doing a good show. This one was just insane. There were just stage invasions. I lost count at about 60, and that was 20 minutes in the show. And I saw this guy just get dropped by the crowd onto his neck onto the stage, and me and Steve caught each other's eye across the stage. Like, oh my God, is he dead? And he sprung back up with the relief in both of our faces.
You can't kill the Russians. You just can't. They're literally another type of human being. And also, I don't know if you noticed, if he had fallen in the crowd, they would have picked him up.
He was crowd surfing to the front, and they dropped him just before the stage, and he hit his head on the stage as he was going down. And,
okay, well, that doesn't prove my point, but
it was a bit of a different one.
It's just, okay, well, not everyone's nice, obviously, but
I don't think it was.
I've played a lot of UK. What's that?
It definitely wasn't intentional.
No, I wouldn't think that. But yeah, it's incredible there, and it's just such it's like electric like atmosphere, and it's hard to get that. I don't know. Maybe we're just spoiled in the UK. Do you think we're spoiled?
I think we have a great love for music venues and live shows, but maybe, I mean, I've been going to gigs since I was a kid because my dad's a musician, and to me it's normal. But then you speak to some people and you go, "Oh, what music do you like?" And they're like, I listen to Radio 1 or something." And there's nothing wrong with Radio 1, but you just kind of like, "Oh, you don't really
don't know what you listen to.
You
Yeah,
don't have a vested interest." Like, for me, it's like I want the next song that I love. Like, I loved the new Purge track. B let me listen to it a couple of days before, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing," and loved watching it.
Yeah, it's quite different stuff. We are, I don't know. I think George, especially, is an absolute. There isn't a word for George. He's a weapon, lyrically and his voice as well. And it's nice for me. I always loved Your Demise. I was well into them, obviously, when he was in them, and we played a few shows in Heart of a Coward with them a long time ago. And I always wanted to work with him just since Your Demise. And he just brings. I always promised myself I wouldn't really get involved with all that shouty, screamy stuff. But you have people like George or Jamie Graham that have these voices that just like it isn't shouty, screamy stuff that your parents complain about. It's like a stellar force of like. I can't even explain it. Like, it's just like utter power, and not only that, it's not just how good the voice is, but it's the diction. I think that means a lot nowadays, and I think a lot of vocalists still don't concentrate on diction. They just concentrate on going so low that they just don't get. You really need to hear the words. I think you shouldn't have to read it. I think it should be, if a vocalist can really, give it that growl and stick the hairs up on your neck and make you feel like if they were behind you, you'd need to run. But also you can understand every word they're saying without having to jump to the lyric book. I think that's a pristine vocalist, without
bring
a
it
doubt.
back round. I think that when I was listening to him, I wasn't actually, I hadn't really heard Your Demise before, and I was just thinking, I would really like to see this live, because bring it back to the live thing. That was my first thought. Like, this is going to be great live.
That's good. Yeah. Well, that's what every band obviously wants to hear. But I'm kind of moving away from the going back to that. I promised myself I wouldn't do all that metal horns anymore. But there's still an element of futuristic stuff going on that I like to inject. That maybe some people don't even notice, but that's kind of the way I do it. But the new stuff we've been doing is actually, some of it's quite fast, which is totally unheard of from me. Maybe the last fast thing anyone might have ever heard from me, Heart of a Coward, maybe, I don't even know, maybe Break These Chains or something, like going back that far. Maybe Shade. Has Shade got a fast bit in it?
Could you talk us through how Heart of a Coward started? Because you mentioned earlier that you were the founding member, so how did that come about?
Oh, wow. I mean, that is a long time ago. Okay, so it was back to the Pits days, like I was mentioning, back when Fell Silent were a band and stuff like that. And I actually only think that when I left, when I was in the band, I was the only original member left in that band. People don't actually realise how far they go back. But I was living with a friend who was the original drummer, Tom Webb. He's not really in the scene anymore, but he was proper like metal, ride the bell kind of double bass drummer. And we just started jamming in his house. And there was another guy called Callum, who was the original vocalist from Heart of a Coward as well. And Ross, who was the original guitar player. I actually think that originally Carl, who is in Heart of a Coward now, actually joined to play bass. Don't know if anyone knew that. And I think he might have done a few shows on bass, and then I think Ross left because he wasn't taking it that seriously. So V came in, but then V wanted to play guitar, but I didn't think he deserved to play guitar because V's really cheeky. So he went on to bass because he's not a bass player. A lot of people don't realize he's actually an incredible like classical guitar player, like unbelievably good. Complete waste of talent because he doesn't do anything with it. You might see a video of him every now and again, but then he just kind of just doesn't do it anymore. But he really should carry that stuff on. So yeah, anyway, I'm longing this out. He went to bass, Carl went to guitar, and then Tom went off to university, so he couldn't. So Noddy joined, and that's kind of like where it was left. And then obviously I left right towards the end, just after Jamie joined. When Ben left, who was in Hacktivist and Opia, which is, we're just like, it's just a weird, like, we're all just Hicks, basically. We've all just been in bands of each other, and we're all just related in some weird cousin-y way. It's something like that. Yeah, so I don't know if I actually described the start of Heart of a Coward very well, but to be honest, it was such a long time ago, and Hacktivist took so much of my life that I find it very difficult to think of life before it.
So how did Hacktivist evolve from that scene?
Well, I left Heart of a Coward, and I had a recording studio called Core Studios, which was my first venture. It's actually out the back of the Crawford Arms. It was in a building connected to the Crawford Arms, and I started hanging out with Ben again, who had left Heart of a Coward and replaced by Jamie Graham, and I was just writing. Basically, Hacktivist was my alias before the band was actually created. So it was kind of like my guitarist alias then. It was something that I was, just messing around. I was messing with 8 strings for the first time, and back then it was almost unheard of. People just didn't realise. Now there's, everyone has got an 8 string somewhere in the cupboard or in the rack. But back then it was weird to people. It was just very, very, very progressive. And I was messing around with that, and I'd always done these weird little metal covers, and I was doing like videos like that and stuff. And I started uploading the Hacktivist stuff on SoundCloud. And my studio used to be quite the little party hub. After shows at the Crawford, everyone, all the boys would be there, and then they'd come, for an after party in the studio, and would have drinks and stuff. And Ben knew Jay, and they go way back from hanging out and stuff. And I'd never met Jay. And Ben brought Jay around to the studio once, and Jay was talking to me about the person. He's was kind of well known in the Milton Keynes grime game anyway at that point, and he was telling me about all that sort of stuff. I did a couple of tracks with him, just recording for him, and one day he was in the studio with me, and he'd said that Ben had mentioned that I'd been like writing for some music, and he just had this like factuation about guitar. He didn't really understand anything about it or what it was or the genre or anything like that. He just loved the way it sounded, and he always used to go like that. It was just always used to make these noises, and it used to really make him like, I'm going to regret doing that. It always used to make him like really, really like buzz. And I showed him the self-titled song Hacktivist was one of the first things I wrote, and I showed it to him, and those vocals that you hear on that track were he just wanted to record something over the top. I'd love to say that I had this crazy idea about, fusing these two things together, but I didn't. He was like, this, I can really do this. So he went in the booth and recorded. All of those vocals were kind of like a freestyle, and they stayed the same, even to this day. That they were just, back then was just something he just said, I think. Maybe some bars of stuff that he had in his head already. And I put that on SoundCloud under the Hacktivist alias, and it just went nuts. Like absolutely nuts. People were just like, not just positive, like also hate. We got a lot of crap back then from people because I think they didn't know how to take it, and they just thought, what the hell is this? Like, why would you do that? But that only just fueled the people that liked it to be more extreme about how much they liked it, and that was it. Literally, it was a blink, and we were on tour with Korn or playing the main stage at Rock Am Ring in front of 80,000 people. It was literally just that moment that changed our whole life.
Yeah, I mean, would you say what majority would you say the hate came from metalheads rather than the grime fans?
not the grime fans loved it, because it, like I think it was Ash said earlier on, how you know when you're a music lover and stuff like that, you're always looking for that new buzz. You're always looking for that new sound, that new song that you've got on repeat, and you know the kind of stuff that makes you drive faster, that kind of stuff, or makes you run faster, or just gives you. This is going to sound really cheesy, but I have had moments in my life with music that generally, not just metal or anything. That has actually given me, it's like made me feel like I have a reason to live. And I know that sounds really deep, but it is that serious for me, and I'm sure it's serious for a lot of music lovers. But I was like, wow, and it makes you think like, wow, this is such an amazing, like I'm alive, and you know, I'm listening to this, and look at the planet. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it is that serious for me. And I've gone so far off track, I've forgotten what your original question was.
It was.
Sorry.
Sorry. What percentage?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, the majority.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the grime, we had nothing but love from people that had nothing to do with an 8-string or even double bass pedals or down tuning or even distorted guitars. They just didn't know that concept. But a lot of it was the metal community. A lot of it was the older metal community. But it's like Marmite, I suppose, and it was always like Marmite, but it just kept on growing. It didn't stop it. And that just goes to show that it's all art at the end of the day. And some people, there are pieces of art out there hanging on a wall that is literally there. It's designed to provoke you or make you feel sick or make you angry. Really bold stuff. But who's to say that that's not a good thing, that it's evoking any emotion? Negativity is not a bad thing if it causes or ignites fire in people. You know, even if they're arguing about whether something's good or bad, there's still a passion there, and it's keeping it going. And I think that was really the source of Hacktivist, was just the whole, this shouldn't work and it does, or this doesn't work and it's rubbish, or not rubbish, but I think people were scared of it. I don't know, but whatever. Every song we brought out, more people got annoyed and more people got into it. And then you started seeing people that were like prolific haters, the YouTubers. They started to, write positive comments. So we were turning people slowly. And it was not that far gone from like Limp Bizkit. Obviously the vocals are a slightly different style and the music's probably a little bit more extreme, but it's very similar. And they were huge, massive, and still are. They still are massive. And it works. Any genre should work with any other genre, but because of all the subdivisions and everything, it's just you mentally, you just switch off and you think, oh, this is, they shouldn't be together because, I don't know, has society told you it shouldn't be together, or is that, everyone's like, I want to hear something new and fresh, but then when they hear something new and fresh, they're like, oh, it's too different. So how do you win?
Yeah, so funnily enough, obviously the story you told about those songs going up onto SoundCloud, and the initial videos and things like that. Like I followed that from the start, and I remember all of that, and I just remember.
Do you?
Yeah, I remember just being blown away. I remember seeing all the hate, and just kind of, it just kind of made me realize, how narrow-minded, given how metal's supposed to be, accepting of anyone and things like that. It kind of, that was the first time I really saw the opposite of what I thought the metal community was meant to be, and that's where, I'd also at the same time had started getting into more progressive things where other genres were fused in, and I mean, just trying to think, when did Cold Shoulders come out? Like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, the video for that.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, like that still stayed with me. That was that was just one of the, I guess, defining moments of my musical maturity. It was witnessing the controversy surrounding that release.
I mean, not a lot went into that release, to be totally honest. I mean, the video was just shot by some friend or something like that. But and it was all quite crude. I don't know why. It was shot the way it was. When you look at it, it's actually quite bad. But like you said, sometimes it's not always about the quality, or even it's like a milestone for something, and that can always be more special than someone's most produced video or song and that kind of thing. And I guess it was a milestone for me, but that song I was really testing the waters with things, and it's quite a mishmash of different stuff. But I'm quite proud of being a part of whether you say that it kind of showed maybe naivety in something that should be supportive, but and I think you're right. I didn't take it particularly hard, but it's just amazing, and that's still happening now. You know, like with everyone that's out there doing their stuff, everyone has this very distinctive sound that's killing it, and that's what I love about it. You know, and our volume's got the kind of rap thing going on and stuff, and that, you know, that they killed that as well, and they had the kind of American twang to that, which I really liked. And there's room for more people to do that, and just smash genres together. I want to hear a progressive country band.
I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier as well about people being able to perform it live, because I remember watching Hacktivist at the first Tech Fest, and all of the staff there collectively just saying, yeah, that was a great performance, and it's not just what you can do in a bedroom, it's taking it to a live stage and being able to perform that to people.
Which I think is harder now, if I'm honest. But that's crazy that you were at that Tech Fest. I do remember that, and I've just got a quick story about that, which is hilarious. Probably borderline, but still hilarious. When we turned up, I don't know if you've heard this story, but we got out, and Jay had never been to anything like this before, and it was his first show with us. I think Tech Fest was our first ever show, or there might have been one stupid one before or something, but I'm pretty sure it was. He got out of the van, and I'll never forget this, some kid ran over and said, "It's Ollie Steele." And it was like just the funny, because he had no idea who Ollie Steele was, and Jay didn't even know how to react because he was so buzzing and excited because he's just a little ball of energy. So he just shook his hand and was like, "Yeah, man, I'm Ollie Steele." It was just like, it was so funny. I mean, I didn't know who Ollie Steele was then, but it was just so funny. He used to get called Jay-Z all the time, which was funny. I mean, that just goes to show how naive metal kids are. But to have a black rapper at Tech Festival back then was quite not strange, but just different. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone was expecting that anyway. So you wouldn't be surprised if people were like, you know, what the hell is this band about? What's this guy gonna do?
No,
because he doesn't dress metal. He doesn't wear metal t-shirts or anything like that.
Yeah, it's. I think. Because obviously that, you know, that as well, like, and our genre included, is somewhat, you know, a niche within a niche.
Definitely.
And yeah, I can only imagine how someone who's completely new to that genre, yeah, must have been completely overwhelmed. But also, I'm assuming the response must have been fantastic, and obviously that further just hyped things up.
Yeah, he was always just like the most energetic out of all of us. Like, Ben had obviously been in Heart of a Coward and had been in other bands. Josh was in Sacred Mother Tongue. I don't know if you guys remember those. Yep. With Andy James. Rich hadn't been. I don't think Rich had been in a band quite like this before, but he'd done shows. He was in like jazz bands and stuff all the time. But yeah, Jay was just. We always fed off of Jay's like enthusiasm, because it was like a kid on Christmas, because just the smallest thing, like getting handed £20 PD, was like, funny enough, he used to call them weedies, because whenever we go to Europe, we just used to buy weed with it, which is just hilarious. But that's why he got so excited about it. And then we just always called them weedies. But he always just found, he was always excited by the most smallest things that I would overlook because I'd been in bands before. And it just made it still feel new again and fresh again. And that's, again, you know, that's the magic of bringing someone in that had nothing to do with this. And you know, oversaturation by going back to like people spending all their time at home and getting you know, the Pliny presets on whatever 14 or Neural DSP's just brought out, and then, you know, loading up that and then playing along to his music and then writing their own music after just playing other people's music and stuff, and just not mixing, you know, want to, you know, learn something completely different and then try and inject those flavors into your music. because people just don't seem to understand that you're not going to get anywhere by being somebody else, because they are that person. And people don't respond to that very well. In my opinion, people don't respond to that very well. People want, with the human race, we're always striving to go higher and go further and run faster and drive faster and go to further planets and stuff like that. And that's how music should be, I think.
Yeah, that's that's pretty fair. That's I think now as well. If you look at some of the more successful bands within prog, you say for example, we look at HOAC. I don't know if you know them. One of 2 albums ago, Affinity, I think it was. It was a massive kind of synthwave influence came in. And the keyboard player plays a guitar, and there's lots of 80s vibes.
That's cool.
And it's just kind of like it's totally different, but it's like in a non-cheesy way, not like Dream Theater. Like it's like done. It's done very well.
Are you saying Dream Theater is cheesy?
I mean, I like them, but yeah, I got to admit it's cheesy.
See, I don't like them, but I love John Petrucci. But let's not talk about Dream Theater because I'll just go. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's like with synths, there's a real delicate way of doing it, and I use a lot of that stuff, but I tend to use more like ambiences and stuff in music instead of like a straight up keyboard sound or something, or like a dubstep wobble or something. I don't know, but it's just amazing to see people doing that. And there's someone that I wanted to mention, I've completely forgotten their name. 12 Foot Ninja, for example.
Yes, it's such a good band.
I mean, they're like the connoisseurs of just throwing anything in, and I used to hate them for that. But actually, now when I listen to their music, I find it very hard to just not be like, this is awesome. And they remind me quite a lot of System of a Down, slightly, by some of the kind of flavours they throw in. And I just love all that. Just go all out and do what you want, and just throw whatever you want in there. It's just like it's just people are too scared to I don't know. I feel like I'm just, it's like a broken record, but breaking the mold, this isn't important anymore. It's just doing what that guy just did. I need to do that. I need to learn that. I need to do a playthrough of that.
Every person that does that will then add their own spin to it, and that is how things tend to evolve.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing a lot of evolution in a lot of these kids doing it. I don't know if you guys have heard much about this speeding up your videos.
Yeah.
And people getting caught out.
Yeah.
What do you? I know you should be asking me the questions on that. I mean, I've never done anything like that, but
well, I saw the other side of it.
It's just things like that.
Because when we were when I was tour managing Heart of a Coward, and we were on tour with Unprocessed, and Manuel got the accusation of speeding up, and I watched it.
Oh.
I watched it from the other side. Like, I was literally sat opposite to him while it was sort of happening, and he's such a good guy, and just watching his shoulders wilt. I mean, he handled it well, and we all sat there talking about how he should handle it, like, do a playthrough with a clock behind you, or do this or do that. And I think he actually in the end handled it very much more mature than his years would normally give a reaction for. But just watching the guy get absolutely rounded on by the internet was pretty hard watching, to be honest.
Yeah, no, totally. My point here, just so nobody doesn't think that I'm on the wrong side, was more about the people that look for this kind of thing.
Yeah,
this is where I was going with this.
No, I had obviously the first-hand perspective of seeing someone being accused of it. I mean, obviously, I think people do it, and there's been controversies in the past of people. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but there've been certain bands that have been hammered for it in the past. I'm not sure really where I sit on it. I mean, I'm not a musician. To me, the end goal, is I want to listen to good music. If some people can only get there by playing a bit slower and speeding up, sure. But I want to be able to see it live as well. So there's the other side of it. If you're going to try and get to a position where you're on stage, you have to be able to do it live.
Yes, from a producer's point of view, because this is all I do for a living, it's just he's used a take Unprocessed for example, or the Manuel for example. He's used a tool to enhance what he's doing. Now, the minute you turn Logic on and put delay or auto tune or any of the user preset from a plugin that you've just downloaded, is exactly the same thing. So what all the people that are pointing the finger at him actually are doing the same thing to some extent. Or, you know, when people record their tunes and they don't record the guitars from start to finish, or they use programmed drums, or it's just to get a certain just to get a certain sound and a perfection. And maybe he just felt like he couldn't nail that at this point, but wanted to share the video anyway, and maybe he was building up to that. That's how people learn stuff. You slow it down and you speed it up slowly. That's kind of like how you're taught when you're learning a lot of instruments.
Well, I think the point of Manuel was he actually can do it, and he was saying he hadn't sped it up, and I was literally on tour of him and watching him play the part that everyone was saying was unnatural because of his wrist movement. Again, I'm not a guitarist. I won't pretend to understand. And to be honest, I didn't go and seek out the videos because I probably wouldn't get it, if you know what I mean. It's just people flaming on the internet. But seeing him live, and I stood with Steve, Heart of a Cow guitarist, and he was just like, "Yeah, look, he's doing it live perfectly." And yeah, so all I was just saying was I felt pretty bad for him, to be honest, because the internet can be a pretty brutal place.
100%. Yeah, that kind of does do a full circle back to what we were saying about the hacktivist thing. It's just like the winner here is him, because he went on stage and he nailed it, and everyone else has their foot in their mouth, and that's all you can do. You can't rise to these things because it just makes you look even more guilty, or just let them do it, because these people aren't doing what you're doing, and they're not going, they're not playing the shows he was playing, and they can't play like him. And that's most of the time why people try and find flaws in this kind of stuff, or they don't accept Jay rapping over 8-string stuff, or whatever, or whatever, however you want to play it. That's why a lot of the people nowadays, technology, I think, is helping and hindering at the same time in quite an extreme way. And it's just a shame that I remember just the only way you could hear a band is going to a gig and getting their CD, and that was it. But yes, it's easier to get your music out there, and yes, it's helping people, and yes, it helped me. But I swear there's people on this planet that have actually ended their own life because of this kind of thing.
Well, the internet is and can be a pretty brutal place for people, because I think people have that anonymity. I mean, going back to the hacktivist thing, I mean, I had a totally different experience from when you guys went live with it. All I saw was you come out of that really well designed, I'm a graphic designer, really well designed H that just looked fire. That was so cool. And you guys just came out there with a really polished looking video, and I was like, wow, this looks pretty good. And then the hype was just everywhere. All I saw was positivity.
Yeah, I think unless you were looking for it, or you were in the band, or maybe I remember getting hate messages from people like, oh, you're not gonna last, and everyone's gonna, this is just a gimmick, and it's never good. But I gotta say that we all got a lot of hate from people, probably that wanted to be doing what we were doing as well, and actually maybe were annoyed that they weren't getting praise for that kind of idea, or doing what. I mean, I'm such a blessed person to be able to have done that and been a part of that with those guys, and the guys know that too, and they're still doing it, and they're still killing it, and that's that I wouldn't want anything else from that, and I'll never forget any of that, and I don't think I'll ever have that again with anything, because that was just such a planets align kind of moment. Right place, right time, right people, and that's really when music is special, because you can't fake that. You just can't fake it. And I'm not saying we're the only band to ever have had it, but even now, I don't know what happened. It was a whirlwind, and I still don't know what I did to deserve that kind of support, because it's easy for us to sit here and talk about the hate but also the amount of support that me and they got from, from fans to management or labels or anything like that, festivals, and the people that looked after us and put us on and pushed us. It was just, I don't know what we did to get there and how we earned that respect from people. It's just, people, the craziest stuff. People in like war-torn countries were like messaging us saying, like, there's tanks outside my road right now, and me and my friends are out like rioting, and we are screaming your lyrics. And to get those kind of messages from people, and for it to be true is just insane. Like, and people saying, I've been in a really dark place and I've really wanted to hurt myself, but your song Taken has just changed my life, and I've got I've got the strength to move on. If it wasn't for you guys, I don't know if I'd be here. And it's a real hard thing to read and to take on, but it's so like humbling to know that we worked so hard and people really, really, really appreciated that.
Well then, I guess my next question following that is, what made you want to leave that all behind?
You mean in Hacktivist?
Yeah.
I think, well, I've got my studio now, and I was between studios when that first started. I was actually, a lot of the Hacktivist stuff was recorded in my house. Kind of set like a studio up at home and stuff like that, and that's where we got a lot of stuff done. I took on this studio, and I was juggling both, and it did become quite difficult, and it became... Actually, no. Going back before that, before I got the studio, there was quite a big piece going on with Metal Hammer, and there was a big like mental. This is really when mental health really started getting spoken about in bands, and that's when in Hacktivist was when I first started enduring like anxiety and then depression caused by anxiety and stuff. But I had no idea what it was. I didn't know that was what it was. I didn't know. You just don't understand what's going on with you at that point. And the album was the last album I was on was heavily delayed because of my mental health. I wrote pretty much 100% of the music. Obviously Rich dealt with the drums, and Ben and Jay did a lot of the vocals, and then the lyrics, and then I would kind of like produce that at the end again when I'd done all the music and they'd done those bits. And I felt immense pressure, and it was probably my own fault for allowing myself to get caught up in it, but it really did, and it really slowed me down for a year or maybe more. And I was thinking about leaving around that sort of time. This was way before I left. I finally gathered the strength, and we got the album out, and that was amazing. And then I found the studio. But a lot of pressures of touring and stuff doesn't help. I was engaged, and that quite a big reason of that breaking down was the band. Wow, this has really been a pretty depressing podcast, so I apologise about that. I guess these things have to be spoken about. It's an insight, isn't it? And I don't have a problem talking about it. I'm quite an open person. Now, I wasn't then, I wouldn't have admitted it. But being in a band like that and touring 9-10 months of the year is incredible, and people would always come up to you and say, oh my God, like you must be on top of the world, and I'm so jealous, I'd love to have your job. But these people are at home with their families, and they're working and getting solid money. None of us were or are rich from it. That's important to remember, because it's expensive to do that. It's expensive to tour. It's expensive to get your merch done. It's you guys know it's expensive to do these things. I mean, Joe, you kind of look after the money, don't you, on the tours, and you know what comes in and what goes out, and it's not easy to make money. All bands now, they all have to have normal jobs, and I was struggling with that, and so I took on the studio, and that kind of made things better for a while until we'd go away to Australia, and I'd be paying someone here to be doing it whilst I was away, and we weren't getting paid an awful lot to be away. So then I was kind of like, well, now I've got my own business, and I'm still not making as much as I should be, and I'm paying someone to be there, and it don't get me wrong, it wasn't all money, because that's not what it's about. And it wasn't like the magic died. I just sometimes you just feel like things end. They just do. Sometimes you can't explain that. And yes, like we all got on like a house on fire. And yes, a lot of the times, there were fallouts. That's just what's been in a band. And a band that goes on a tours that much together in a confined space, the worst parts of you are gonna come out. It wasn't anything specific in that way. It's just that right near the end, I just felt like, I wanted to focus on the studio. That helped me have something to look forward for when I was weighing it up. But I knew the minute I was able to tell the guys I can't do this anymore, I knew that I could trust myself, because if I was able to actually say it and not feel regret, then that was the way to go. But there was no real defining reason, just factors of my life. And it was the right time for me. I felt like I couldn't offer any more to it, if I'm honest. And I guess it's just I still feel now I left at the right time, and I feel now that I can look back. And if I'd stayed longer, that I might have deteriorated, or my mental health might have deteriorated more, and that might have caused more rifts, and and that might have made the end of my time in that band worse, or made me feel ill towards the band. So I just wanted to leave on a high. I wanted it to be good. I wanted it to be positive, and I wanted to do new things. And that was it, really. There's no dirt or anything like that. It's just I found it very difficult, and it's also very hard coming home from tours and the kind of things we were doing. When you go away, Ash, you'll know this. You go away for a long period of time, and you come back, and it's all quiet, and you shut your door and you sit on the sofa, and you haven't got a tour for a couple of months, and it's so hard to like pick yourself up and be like, right, what do I do? Okay, I need to go and get milk and bread from the shop. I mean, how can those contrasts? How could you be happy about that contrast? It's nice to see your loved ones and stuff like that, but it's like a huge hole inside of you that's gone, and it's like a sickening feeling. It's nice to be home, but it's weird being home because there's no regiment. You got to get up, you got to get off the bus, you got to sound check. It's time to eat. It's time to get on the plane. There's nothing. It's just I don't have to do anything, and that is a horrible feeling.
Bringing it to thank you, that was really enlightening. Bring it to around a bit more positive, because you just alluded it to a moment there. Like, have you got any funny tour stories from your Hacktivist days that are the right level for sharing online?
I will say one thing. When you mix bands with backstages that have Jägermeister and vodka trailers that are free for the artists to drink, it's just the worst combination. And the band will never be accepted at With Full Force Festival ever again. But we were so drunk. I mean, like not being horrible people. I don't know what happened. It was like we all drink and we all like partied and stuff, but we never. That was just like we were young and we just got onto the festival circuit. We were doing the big Euro festival and we were like hanging out with like Corey Taylor took quite a shine to us back in the day. He called us his little English friends, even though he's not that tall. And every time we'd step off the bus and he'd step off his bus, he'd come running over to us and tell us about a story the night before, and we became quite good friends with friendly with him and his partner, who is also his PA, and she's wicked as well. And we were meeting Lemmy at these festivals. We met up a couple of times, even though he didn't have that much to say, but he was really ill, so I let him off. Howard Jones. I mean, I remember sitting around a table eating with Howard Jones. Like, it's just insane, and he's just talking to you and telling you stories and laughing, like like you're just one of his friends, and we were young and naive, and it's quite hard when you're that age to try and keep cool around people like that. But anyway, yeah, we just partied far too hard, and we were just running around the festival with we were taking things out of the catering, bean bags and stuff, and filling the bus with them. Not had any intention to actually steal them. I just think we're being stupid. I think I might have taken a coffin. There was like a weird little mini coffin case for a violin. I think I took that and I started putting things in it, and I was running around with this coffin case and stuff. Alcohol's always going to bring funny stories into things. I'm just trying to think of anything that was really odd. We had a really good time most of the time.
Oh, you mentioned Jägermeister. I can't. There was a Euroblast where it was free backstage, and I'm sorry, John, if you're listening. And me and Khan and a few other guys abused it so badly that I ended up vomiting into my pint and casually placing it on the bar and walking away. And I just can't touch the stuff now.
Yeah, it's one of those things like Ouzo as well for me as well. That's a childhood no-no. But I do remember leaving with full force. We had to leave quite quickly because their security were all German Hell's Angels, which were quite angry with us. So I just remember waking up in the step on like a splitter van when you step down. I just woke up in the step like in a kind of small pond of my own dinner, and everyone was like, "We gotta go, 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 go!" And I was like, "What is going on?" The next minute I woke up, we were in like Belgium or something like that. But I do remember Down were doing a meet and greet at that festival. Ben was wasted and he ran into their meet and greet and started dancing on their table in front of the vocalist who was in Pantera.
Yeah, Phil Anselmo, yeah.
Yeah, he was. I think Phil like basically threw him out of the tent. I think that was when it all kind of went south. Yeah, we matured a lot after that, and you just get a stomach for it, don't you? After a while, and we became much better. I can't think. It's literally like. No. It's just a haze of drunken messes, really. Or just us. We always seem to get in trouble at borders. They always seem to not look. They didn't ever want to let us in. I remember sitting. Where were we crossing? We were crossing somewhere, and we were sat there for 2 days, I think. Like literally 2 days, and all they had to do was stamp a carnet. I don't know if you guys know what a carnet is. Joe must know what a carnet is. Yeah. Which is basically just a proof of you going to another country and proof of the gear you have. And when you leave, you have to get it stamped again, and they count it, and it's to prove that you've not sold anything and abused their tax system, basically. But they're a nightmare. They are an absolute nightmare at some borders. Some of the other stories I have are way too explicit.
Well,
far too explicit. And I think the guys would be quite angry with me.
In terms of, before we wrap up, we ask all our guests what they've been listening to in lockdown. So is there anything that you'd particularly like to highlight or recommend for our listeners?
So there's a band that have come out of the woodwork the last few years, and for me are just, A, not as big as they should be, and B, just killing it over everyone, and that's Loathe. Especially their new stuff, but I just do not know where they get it from. And I know Connor, the guitarist, quite well, and they are incredible, and their sound, it's just brutal, but it's clear, but it's edgy, and then they've got these like beautiful sections, and I love like the ambiences they have at the start of songs and all that kind of like real tape distorted-y kind of. And yeah, I mean, anything that they do is I don't like. There's nothing I don't like from them. So they are. I listen to those guys a lot. I also listen to a lot of other styles of music. So I'm actually really into jazz at the moment. I don't know what it is about the sunshine and bringing like old school jazz out for me. I can't really give you any names because I tend to just listen to playlists. But if people want to chill in the garden with like Pims or something, jazz, anything. Like there's like a kind of like there's also a modern jazz playlist on Spotify. I can't remember the name of that either. It's my dyslexia coming in here now. I'm rubbish with names, but Who else have I been listening to? I mean, JME's new album's amazing. I don't know if any of you guys listen to Grime.
I've listened to that
Occasionally.
actually. I really
Probably.
like it. He's got some really clever wordplay in it.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie's kind of like a real simple rapper in the way where he's so obvious with what he says. He's so he says it really how it is, as if he's just running his thoughts out, and that's what I like about him. He's so literal, and it's not deep, and he's just so, I don't know. He just I love it, and I also love that track that DWE did for IKEA. Has anyone heard that?
No.
No, actually, no.
No.
IKEA did an advert just before lockdown, and he did the track for it, talking about how dirty someone's house is, and the whole thing is it's incredible. You guys need to check it. I can't remember what it's called, but if you just search for like DWE IKEA advert, he is a genius with telling a story. To be honest, I've been watching more than listening because I don't really get the chance to, because of being a producer and all that kind of thing. I don't get a chance of when I am open and fully not on the lockdown to watch anything. It's only really listening that I do if I'm driving. By the time I get home, I go straight to bed because it's late and I shut late. I get up and I go. I might listen to something in the car. I don't tend to listen to anything too progressive because I'm right in the middle of producing that kind of thing for myself and other people, and I don't like to get too involved with what is out there at the moment, just through my own writing. So really, Netflix has been my best friend, and Amazon Prime, and just getting lost in some crazy sci-fis. I'm just so on my sci-fi game right now. I'm sorry if this isn't what you wanted to talk about, but also playing
sci-fi.
Doom, the Doom soundtrack. Oh my god, is just incredible.
Ash is laughing because we were chatting about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Does he not like it?
No,
He loves it.
it's amazing. I mean,
Did you hear about the stuff behind that and how that a Doom fan playing the game noticed that the audio quality wasn't quite up to scratch, so he complained, and then there's like some dispute between the guy that did the audio and the game.
yeah, I heard his name's Mick Gordon, and I heard
That's it.
he basically, apparently, he didn't meet the deadline that that the studio set. So not every song on there is his, because they had to get other people to have to start reaching out to other people for backup music, and then obviously it couldn't be mixed or mastered correctly in time, to push the release. I mean, apparently it was a similar issue with the first game, but they managed to pull through.
Does it matter? Does it matter though? The game is amazing and the music is amazing, and most people play their audio through their TV or their soundbar, which compresses everything to hell anyway. It's an amazing game. We're just going back to the whole people pointing again, but that's such a good soundtrack, and he's a genius. He really is.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And the other people on it.
I was going to say, I looked into the making of it, and the majority of it is quite analog.
I didn't look into that.
Lots of modular synths, lots of cables. Not much in the way of plugins and things like that. You'll be pleased to know.
I mean, I use also. So my dog started heaving when you said that. I don't know if you want to cut that bit out. I use a bit of a mixture of both, but I would love to have all the analog stuff. But it's too hot and it takes too much room. It's too expensive and it's not that reliable. But I do like someone, I do like a guy that's got cables everywhere. I couldn't deal with it, but I like the thought of that. I like the sound of it anyway, put it that way.
Yeah, I'll show you the documentary. But
I'd love to see that.
I'm afraid we're actually quite pushed for time. We're going to have to wrap things up now. But it's been a pleasure.
Go for it.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on and learning so much about your history and your career. Obviously, you've had a massive impact on the scene locally, and then a massive impact nationally with the projects you've been involved in. So I appreciate you giving us your time today.
Thank you. And I don't think I mentioned my new band once, but I guess you will mention at some point that we will be playing at Radar. That would be our first debut, so I'm looking forward to seeing everybody down there and some old and new faces. And I'm also looking forward to playing, which you didn't mention, which surprised me, on, is it the same stage as two bands that I've been in and a band I'm in.
Yep.
But you guys steered clear of that. I thought the first question was going to be, so how are you going to feel doing that? But you didn't. But I'm excited to it's going to be a bit of a cool reunion, so I'm looking forward to that.
It's the Milton Keynes weekend in Guildford.
No, sorry, it's pronounced Milton Cleans, actually.
I'm very happy with that pun.
But yeah, thanks, Tim.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I hope the rest of lockdown works out for you, and obviously, you've got some production work to try and fish for. But
yeah, it's mostly voiceover that I'm doing at the moment. For I'm doing some work with Cambridge Books, which are a good client, and I'm pretty much one of the only studios they can get hold of to do it. And the lady that I work with a lot is from Milton Keynes, so it's local, and she can come in without us even coming in contact, which is good. But she's a children's voice actor, so that's real good fun.
Right. Well, that's bye from me. Yeah, thank you very much for your time, Tim.
No problem. Thank you.
And goodbye from Joe and Catherine.
Bye.
Ta-ra!